Hey, what's up? This is Mike from Blow the Wolf. This is a Jackson JS32 King V, and I'm going to tell you about my experience with it. Alright, so first let's go over the specs. We have a poplar body, maple neck, amaranth fretboard, standard headstock, 6-in-line tuners, Jackson branded tuners, Jackson licensed Floyd Rose, Jackson humbuckers, 1 volume, 1 tone, 3-way switch. Pros of this guitar. Number 1, price. Brand new, these are $299. They look awesome. So that's another pro. Looks are great. The neck on this is awesome. It's a bolt-on. The finish is great. It's this satin finish, so it's kind of got like an oil and wax finish to it. It's awesome. The profile of the neck is pretty typical Jackson profile. It's thin. It's not the thinnest neck I've ever played, but pretty thin. The fretboard, this amaranth is, I really kind of like it. It's kind of got like a smoky rosewood, grayish, pinkish finish to it. I'll get some shots later. I'll compare it to the other guitars I have, but I did some research on this amaranth and I thought it was probably a pretty cheap fretboard material. Turns out it has another name called Purple Heart, and when I found that out, I was like, well, that kind of makes sense because it is kind of purplish. Another pro of this guitar is the neck construction, meaning like the fretwork is good, the binding looks good, the nut is seated properly. Sometimes on cheaper guitars, and even not on cheaper guitars necessarily, the nut is like overhangs in one direction, if you know what I mean, if you've ever experienced that. This one's not like that. Playability is great. It's what you'd expect from a Jackson. There are some cons, okay? For a $299 guitar, there's going to be cons. I think what Jackson is cheaping out on here, the tuners, they're just trash. They're garbage. Some of them are nice and tight and fluid. Others, like you're turning and it gets tight and then it gets loose. And then when you loosen a string, it becomes really super loose. They're really inconsistent tuners. If you were to buy this guitar, you would probably eventually have to replace the tuners. Equally horrible is this Jackson branded Floyd Rose. This thing, I can't say anything good about it other than it has the Jackson logo and maybe it was legit, but I don't know. Here's the thing. If you've ever had the hope of ordering a bridge from China, hoping that it was going to be good, and you got it, and you put it in your guitar, and you're like, and you started using the whammy bar, and the thing didn't hold tune, that's what this feels like. It feels like Chinese-made garbage. The bar is like, I can feel it in my hand. It's like pencil thin. It's just not substantial. Other con, and this might be really hard to see, I don't know if the camera's going to be able to get this, but there's a tiny, tiny hairline crack right here where the neck and the body meet. Just a tiny hairline crack. And it's probably just in the finish, but I don't know. Last thing about this guitar is, and you would never know this unless you actually held it in your hands, but it just kind of feels like a toy. Let me give you an example here. This is a poplar body, right? Okay, well, it just so happens that my Kelly here is also a poplar body, and when I hold this, this thing feels like a guitar. And it's not just the weight, but it's like the feel of the finish in your hands. Like this feels like it's been sprayed or lacquered or whatever they do when they finish the guitar, like more times than the other one. The other one, like when you hold that guitar, it just, I don't know, there's a feeling of the finish is thin. The pickups on here are about what you'd expect on a $299 guitar. And to be honest with you, it's not the worst feature of this guitar at all. I would say that the hardware is the worst feature. In the pickups, it's like, yeah, they'll do the job. You might want to replace them eventually, but it's not immediate. This guitar does have neck dive issues. Let me grab a strap here. All right, so here's where the factory button is. Boom. Okay. And if you want to fix this, you want to move the button here. And I'll show you how to do that in 1 second. But this is where it comes on the factory. And if you're standing there playing, boom, that's what happens. Okay? One more time. Okay. So in order to fix that, what you want to do is the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take like a cloth or something and stick it under the bridge. Okay? Then you're going to loosen the strings to take the string tension off the neck. Then you're going to unscrew this neck bolt, unscrew it, take the strap button, screw it back in, and you're done. It seriously took me less than 10 minutes to fix this. And let me show you what happens then. Okay, so that's a cheap and fast fix. And like I said, 10 minutes or less. The only issue you might have is that this strap button, the bolt that goes into the body and neck might be too wide for this strap button. So you might have to, I would recommend just going to like a local guitar shop, bring this bolt in and see if they have see if the tech just has like a junk drawer filled of strap buttons, and just tell him what you're trying to do. See if he can just hook you up with a strap button. That'd be my suggestion. All right, bottom line. For as cheap as they are, I guess if you're going to go into it knowing that you're going to spend like $100 or more on a new bridge, and I would recommend going with like a Floyd Rose Special at least, and those are $100, around $100. You're gonna have to go in there like expecting that you're gonna spend more, and probably the same thing on the pickups. I don't think in the long run, like if you're a pro like stage player and you're gonna play out live with this, you're definitely gonna want to do something about the bridge. Definitely want to do something about the tuners, and then probably something about the pickups too. So, like if you're gonna go new, let's say about $100 on the bridge. You know, new pickups. You might be able to find some used ones on eBay, but if you're gonna go for like a Duncan TB, JB, TB4, new, you're looking at $80. Tuners. I've seen like some Godo brand tuners, and I recommend those. Those are about $40. So you're talking about spending almost as much money in upgrading this guitar as you did just spend on it. And then at that point, you might as well just bump up and get yourself an X Series guitar. So once again, we come back to this one. This is my Jackson KVX MG. And I've had this guitar since 2009, and I recommend it. If you're in the market for a King V, this is what I would recommend, not the JS series, and I wouldn't recommend the Pro series either, and you can see my other video on that. Okay, that's what the Amaranth fretboard looks like, and that's what the Rosewood fretboard looks like. So you can see the Rosewood is a little bit like browner and richer, and then the Amaranth is a little bit more rosy and smoky. That's how I would describe it. Some grayish hues. I like the Amaranth. I think the Amaranth looks really nice compared to the Rosewood. I actually prefer the Amaranth slightly. If you're curious about how this guitar sounds, I've prepared a couple of sound clips for you. One sound clip is comparing the JS32 King V to the KVX MG. And then I thought, well, that's passive to active, so let's maybe compare the JS32 King V to another passive pickup. So in another sound clip you'll hear the JS32 King V, the Jackson high output pickups, against the Seymour Duncan JB.